Hey girls, I have a really fun video for you all today, but also one I'm really nervous about because it's a very controversial topic, but I think it needs to be talked about. So let me just do a little disclaimer real quick saying that this is James's in my opinion, and it will look different in different people's marriages, and that's okay. And we're also just like scratching the tip of an iceberg. Like there's so much more that could be said on this topic. So please comment your thoughts below too, and we'd love to hear what you think. Here we go. Hey girls, Tiffany Dawn here with my husband, James.
Hey everyone.
And we did a video on masturbation earlier this week, so why not do another really tough video this week on submission, which is another one that we've been requesting to do. And I actually tried filming it by myself, but I was like so feisty in it that I had to delete it, and I'm doing it now again with James.
Tiffany enjoys getting angry and passionate about certain topics, and this is one of them. While I really like going to weddings with Tiffany, it's almost inevitable that we will get in a fight after the service.
Not a fight, I just like vent.
Yes, Tiffany will vent strongly after the service because typically the pastor preaches on Ephesians 5 and the tenor of the sermon is something like, so wife, be submissive to your husband. And anytime Tiffany hears that word,
I'm like, oh, it makes me so angry.
Yeah.
Okay, let me read you the passage first. That way if you don't know what we're talking about, you can hear it. And then I'll tell you why it makes me angry. So Ephesians 5:22 through 28 says, wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. He who loves his wife loves himself. The reason this makes me angry is because I've seen it abused so many times, this idea of submission. Like I dated this guy when I was in college, and he had this very like legalistic view of submission. And basically his idea was that he should be able to control my life. Like if I bought clothes and he didn't like them, he'd make me return them. He wanted me to wash my hair with certain shampoo and conditioner. He thought he could tell me who I could and couldn't be friends with, what ministries I could and couldn't serve in church. And it was very much like, I'm the man, I'm the leader, I'm the head, this is what you do.
That's crazy.
And that makes me so mad.
I'm not even familiar with any brands of shampoo and conditioner.
That's true. But yeah, so like I've just seen it misused and seen it become this thing where it's like the man's the leader, and so we just are gonna go with whatever he says every time because he's the leader of the household and that's how it works. And I mean, first of all, if you look at like Christ and the church, which is the example, like God doesn't really do that in the way he leads us.
I think as we read that passage right now, I was thinking, you know, one of the reasons why people have this sort of very strict take on what this passage means is because the analogy that's given is Christ is the head of the church.
Yeah.
And we always think of Christ as being the leader of the church, the one in charge of the church, the one who says, hey, church, do this.
Rules, yeah.
Hey, church, do that. And that's really, if you look at the whole of Scripture, it's really not the main thrust of Scripture is that, hey, Jesus is your boss.
Yeah. Like for me, it's like God is my father, my best friend, my provider, my comforter. My relationship with God is not him saying, Tiffany, you must go this way today. And I used to see God like that. I remember driving to school when I was in college because I commuted the first couple years, and I'd be like, do I take this route or this route, God? Like, what if I go the wrong way and miss your will? And I've realized like that's just not how God leads us. He's not this like controlling taskmaster. He like puts things in our hearts and like guides us in love. A lot of decisions that I make, I feel like he's saying, well, what do you want to do? Like what's in your heart to do? Then do it. Yeah, I just think we like look at this passage out of this lens of God as our master, which
he is, but he's also so many other things too.
Right, because even you look at parts of the prophets where it says you'll no longer see God as your master, but as your husband.
And even just the use of the word submission, our cultural context of this word here in America is one of like superiority and inferiority. UFC is Ultimate Fighting Championship, and there's one of the things that you would do is you would get a submission hold, and it's basically, I've choked this person out so they can't move, and they've said, you know what, I lost, you won. And that's kind of that really is our cultural connotation of submission is, I'm on top, you're on the bottom, I say what we're gonna do, you don't.
Yeah.
I win, you lose. A win-lose kind of situation is the last thing you want in a dating or marriage relationship.
Yeah.
It's really designed to be extremely collaborative and extremely selfless. Yes. And I think that's the real thrust of this passage. One pastor we heard when we were at a wedding in Greece.
A wedding I actually left and was like, I liked that message on Ephesians 5.
It was really well done. Essentially the pastor said, look, what Paul is saying is, wives, do the thing that is really the most selfless thing for you to do. Submit to your husbands. Husbands, do the most selfless thing there is to do. Love your wives.
And I think it was even more, he was saying, if you get to the core of it, what the woman is doing is putting herself aside for the sake of her husband, and what the guy is doing is putting himself aside for the sake of his wife. And so for both people, it's like, I really think it's true, the more selfless you become, the better your marriage becomes. But I think this passage that's really at the heart of it is like both people are putting themselves and their desires aside for the sake of the other. And that doesn't mean that they don't have desires or they don't express desires. Like I know when I was with that ex-boyfriend, if I disagreed with him, that was like a sin. You know, like my desires did not count like his did. And that's not what this passage is saying. That's a very unhealthy relationship.
I think a lot of times, like in our situation, whenever we're making any sort of decision, whether it's where we're going to go out to dinner or what we're going to do for Christmas, or, you know, if we're going to buy a house or what church we're going to, we're both expressing how we really feel.
I know this is where a lot of people come at it, is like if you're making a decision and you disagree on it, then that's where the guy steps in and you go with his way because he's the man. But I think like for us, we kind of, there are some things we keep talking through and talking
I feel like that is not a good solution. Like I wouldn't be comfortable just going with my decision just because, hey, I'm the man. We're going to go with my decision. I'm wrong a lot. I mean, does that just mean we're going to be wrong more frequently? And I really feel like we only make unanimous decisions. If we don't agree on something, we're going to talk about it more. And we're going to talk about it more until we agree, or if we need to get some wise counsel, we're going to do that. But we don't make one-person decisions. We make unanimous decisions.
Yeah, because we really value each other's input. And we know that both of us hear from God. Even just today was an example of this, where God put the same thing on both of our hearts. We've been talking about this house that is in the inner city. Again, he loves inner city work. And it's like this very much a fixer-upper, very cheap house. And he was like, maybe we should buy it and fix it up and rent it out. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And so just today, we've been talking about it for a while, and I was taking a walk today and walked past it, and I was like, I really think that I should encourage James to set up a time to visit that house and look at it more. And just today he came home and was like, I was talking with someone about mortgages and I'd kind of like to have her draw up a potential mortgage on that house. And it was just cool, like how God just puts things on both of our hearts at the same time. Not always, but quite frequently.
But in some situations, one person really does have a distinct preference. Like I, for example, we go to an inner city church. I love going to an inner city church. It's a difficult thing for Tiffany because there's no one who's really our age that can be our friend.
Also, I'm very much an introvert and he's very much an extrovert. And so it's like he's like in his element and I'm like, I have to talk with more people I've never met before every single week in church. I would rather stay home. You know what I mean? It was funny. I was talking with a friend about this and I was like, yeah, we're still going though, like because he really loves this stuff and I want him to be able to go to this church. And my friend said, that's really cool you're submitting to your husband. And I was like, I literally not once thought of it that way, and I still don't. Like, to me, it had nothing to do with submission. It had to do with, I want him to become all God made him to be. I want him to do all the things God gave him to do. So, of course, I'm going to put myself aside in some situations so that he can do that and be that.
And in this situation, one of the ways that I put myself aside is some days we go to a different church and we are talking about whether or not we should be involved in some way in some other kind of church so that Tiffany can get the sort of support and encouragement that she needs, because her well-being is so important to me. Much more than, hey, I get to do ministry in the inner city, my favorite thing.
And he was very much like, sweetie, if you want to go to a different church, we can do that. Like, I don't want you to feel like you have to stay here. And again, it's him loving me, putting himself aside to love me. And I think that that's the whole point of this passage. It's not about who's the boss. It's about putting yourself aside to love the other person. I wish I'd actually looked up the Greek word of submission, because I wonder if it has to do with like love and respect too. There's that book, Love and Respect. And so it could almost be like God was saying, here's what women really need is to be loved. And guys wouldn't always think of that as a way to express love, because for a guy, the way they want to receive love is oftentimes through respect. And so I think it also is kind of cool how the spouse gets what they have that need for in the marriage. One other thing I'd want to add is if you're dating somebody and they want to be your head, I think that
Run.
Run away. I mean, you talk through it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's like bad, but they are not your head. If you take this on a very literal, he's the man, he's the head of me, that's not true when you're dating. Your dad or your spiritual dad is the head, not your boyfriend. So if a guy's like trying to be that for you, that is not what he's meant to do or the role he's meant to play. So
He might be trying to compensate for something.
Wow.
You impressed how I said that with a straight face?
I'm impressed. It could also mean that he wants to be in control. And whenever you have somebody who wants to be in control, that is trying to compensate for something else. That's
a problem.
That is a problem. And that's not the kind of person you want to be married to. Someone who wants to control you, that will be miserable. I would rather stay single forever than be married to someone who wanted to control me. So girls, I hope that this can encourage you. And as always, like, please share your experiences down below. Like, what does, if you're married, what does this look like in your life? If you're not married, what do you imagine this would look like? Because we're always, learning from other people, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. So thanks for being with us this week for some tough topics. Love you, girls. Bye.
Picture my life,